East and the West. You've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DiBiase, the primetime capper, and this is Hoops One.
What's up, world? What's going on? That's the intro, but that was what we had a few. That was one of our first episodes and everything like that. So back to it and everything. But I didn't know that I had put in the whole thing because I'm over here trying to get my Hoops 101 intro, and pretty much that's what happened. So. What's going on, y'all? I hope everybody's feeling good, feeling great, man. Lots of good things happening right now in college basketball. We are so close to conference play as well, too. So you guys, let's get into why UNC is struggling, going from preseason number 1 to unranked team at this point. They do have a game today at the Garden versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. Let's talk those tickets. Just tweeting out something real quick. But I just wanted to talk about Carolina real quick. And all you guys who have future bets on North Carolina, you guys shouldn't really hesitate. You guys really shouldn't get scared about that situation because you do have a team in North Carolina that is, I would say very savvy. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of us have to just get into the fact that this team is just, they're very good at what they do, and I think that a lot of us have to really get into the idea that these teams are really, it's all about your schedule. And I think that what happened with them is that their schedule was fairly hard to start the season off. There's really no excuse, but they did have a pretty difficult schedule, to be honest with you. And, when you got to start off in places like Portland, Oregon, where you're playing in the, I'm going to just call it the Nike Invitational, Nike Legacies, you're going against all the top teams. You're going against all the teams that have some real credibility in the nation. They might not be top teams, but they have credibility. They have tradition of being good college basketball teams. So, I think that a lot of us just run into the idea that there's a lot of different things that, that we deal with on a daily basis. And, a lot of folks really feel like, just because you're not doing well in the beginning that you're not really a good team. That's the furthest from the truth, to be honest with you. So I think a lot of us have to just get into the fact that there are a lot of really good players out there. And I think that, we have to understand that this is a tough college basketball season because there's a lot of teams that they're putting in these number 1 spots and everything like that. And they're just really no good. You know what I mean? So pretty much, and it's not that they're not good. It's just that it's like, okay, you beat this team last week, so we'll go ahead and we'll crown you the new number 1. But you have to understand, this team came into it. It was tough because they literally went into a situation where they won their first 5 games of the season, but once they played competition, it was just a downhill from there. They played Iowa State, lost to them by 5, then played Alabama that Sunday, had a crazy game against Alabama, wound up losing that one by 2. Then they had their Big Ten ACC game against Indiana at Indiana, wound up losing that one by 12. And then they had a shocking loss in their first conference game of the year against Virginia Tech. So this team lost 4 in a row, and I think that this was probably the best time of the year to lose 4 in a row, to be honest. So North Carolina, if you are a Tar Heel faithful, I would say don't worry about a thing at this point. But it's not good when you go from being number 1 in the nation to already not being ranked. But they'll be back in the ranked field of things very, very soon. But they're not a good road team. They're not traveling well. They're not good on neutral courts right now. So that's something to look at. But they have not hit their stride yet from what I'm seeing here in the stats. So there's a lot of things that are desired. You know what I mean? You still got Love and Baycott who are having themselves a hell of a year, and Davis is killing it as well too, and Nance. But see, once you get those 4 out the way, there's not much more for this North Carolina team. So they're gonna have to get guys off the bench to step up for the squad. So that's my feelings and that's my 2 cents on this. And let's move forward from there because we got tip off at 9:00, so I gotta hurry. So pretty much we move on to our next topic, and that's going to be the Big Ten. The Big Ten, is this the best conference in college basketball? Big Ten has a lot of teams that are in the top 25. They have a slew of teams here. That would start off with the number 1 team in the nation, who we'll talk about in a second, Purdue. Then you have Wisconsin, Ohio State, Indiana, Maryland, and Illinois all ranked. And then you have teams like Michigan and Michigan State on the outside looking in. They'll be, their records are not great because they've been going against a lot of really good teams to start the season off as well too. But those teams are perennial top 25 teams as well too. So when you look at this, they do have about 8 teams here that look like they could be tournament worthy. And pretty much the worst record in the conference right now is Minnesota at 5-6. And Nebraska, you don't ask Nebraska to do too much, but Nebraska is a surprising 6-5 right now. And then the craziest part to me is Iowa's 7-3, but they've lost they lost their first conference game of the year, so they kind of look like they're dipping. And Illinois, who came off with a great start to start the year, they're 0-2 in conference play as well. But this is how tough it's going to be in the Big Ten. When these teams travel, these road games are going to be where they really, really get their dues at. You know what I mean? And a team like Ohio State, to me, who kind of struggled in this preseason play, because I did not like how they looked at Maui, but they've improved since Maui. And I think that they are the biggest threat to Purdue whenever they do play. And I think that Ohio State, like every year, they have a big opportunity to be the team that winds up being the, de facto team in the Big Ten. Because from what we know, they're probably going to go on a run at some point this year. Maryland did not look great against UCLA, but I don't think that we need to take that in as a way to say that Maryland's a bad team. It's just that UCLA was that much better than them. And I think today is a great showcase game for the Bruins going against Kentucky. So this is going to be a really good day of basketball in a sense. It's going to tell us a lot of things about these conferences as well, too. And, Big Ten, they have a few conference games up under their belt, but they will start next week. So I'll be covering that on a daily basis with the conference bets list. So you guys won't miss a thing there. And we'll be bringing back the conference bets list next Saturday as well, too, or next Friday, whenever I'm able to actually get here and be able to talk basketball, because it was tough yesterday because we didn't have any lines ready. And I said to myself, we don't have enough games on Friday to where we don't have lines made for Saturday. You know what I mean? So I know it'll probably change up next week. So, I'm trying to do the show on Friday. So pretty much when we look at this situation, this is a tough conference. You got a lot of winning teams here, teams with winning records. So from what I can see here, they could possibly get 8 teams into the tournament this year. And I would say that the teams that you could say that should be in will be Purdue, the teams that I named that were ranked, but then you also add in Michigan and Michigan State, and then quite possibly, if they can if they can keep playing some pretty good basketball this year, Iowa's another team that will probably loom into the tournament as well too. And then Penn State is, to me, like a dark horse to get in there as well. So it should be pretty good. And Rutgers is a team that you still have to give a nice look to, because they're going to get some big wins in the conference this year. So there it is. We move forward from there, and let's go ahead and jump into the ACC real quick. And the ACC is not looking like the ACC that we all know and love right now. There's a lot of there's a lot of winning records here, but Florida State's awful. Louisville's awful. That wasn't the case a few years back. Those were some of your better teams in the conference. Boston College is always Boston College, a very mediocre, middling team. Then you have Georgia Tech, who's playing well at home as usual, but they're a bad road team, so that comes into play a lot. And then after you look at that, this conference doesn't really give you much. They have 4 teams that are ranked, but 2 of them are literally one loss away from being out of the top 25. Virginia Tech is only in the top 25 because they're 10-1. Miami's only in the top 25 because they're 10-1. And these are good wins. They got good wins, but they really did have easy schedules. Let's keep it real. You know what I mean? When it really comes down to it. And then when they had a challenge, they got beat by 18. That was against Maryland. Now, Virginia Tech, on the other hand, this team is always a fast starter, and they're big, and they do have a good resume win with beating North Carolina when they were the 18th ranked team in the nation. And they've also beat Oklahoma State as well, too. But Oklahoma State is middle of the road this year. So, you do have that up under your belt. And I did mention Penn State, and they did beat Penn State. So Virginia Tech is playing good basketball. But once they get into conference play, things do change for this team, to be honest with you. So, I don't see the ACC being as dominant as they've been over the past decade or so. And that's actually started a few years back. Now, the one team that you can look at and say to yourself that they could possibly be a team that makes a move here is a team like, say, NC State. NC State's 9-3 right now, and they could be a team that's a thorn in the side of, say, Duke, who's 10-2. Also gives North Carolina some problems as well. That whole great triangle of rivalry that they have. Really, it's a 4-corner thing. You know what I mean? You got Raleigh and Camden, and you have Chapel Hill, and then you have Greensboro, where Wake Forest is at. So all these towns are all next to each other, and it's not Greensboro. I'm sorry, with Wake Forest, but they are all these towns are right next to each other. Raleigh and all that good stuff, and so you have all that stuff right next to each other in Durham, and so these are big time games when these teams play each other. So I know a lot of us really do look at this and say to ourselves that this conference will probably pick it up, but I don't see them putting in as many teams into the tournament this year, because a lot of them are not getting wins that are conducive to being in the tournament this year, in my opinion. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out, but that's my 2 cents on the ACC. Now we move forward. Let's talk about the Purdue. Are they a Final Four team or a front runner? Now, Purdue has been a team that has been a squad that really has underachieved a lot. They have went into the tournament high seed and lost. Last year they were a 2 seed and got put out by a very game St. Peter's team from my favorite conference, the Metro. So you had that occur, but Purdue has some good wins on the resume this year. They beat Duke by 19 and they beat Gonzaga by 18. But both these games were in Portland, Oregon on a neutral court, but that's almost in tournament style as well too, and they dominated both those teams. They also got a good win over Marquette, who had a great win last night against a Crichton team who was top 10 to start the year off, but they've kind of fell to the wayside. They beat Marquette by 5. They also beat West Virginia by 12, who's going to be a very good team in the Big 12 this year. And then they also got a nice little they also have opened up 2-0 in conference play with good wins over Minnesota, and they had to go ahead and fight a little bit, but they beat Nebraska as well too. Now today they have a game against Davidson that's really not a threat, but them being a 15.5-point favorite is a little questionable because Davidson is a team that can light it up and figure out a way to cover in that game. But it is their first game as the number one team in the nation. They've been off a week as well too, and then they line it up with New Orleans and FAMU to actually start the to actually before they get into their conference play. Conference play for them starts on January 2nd. Well, continuing conference play. They get Rutgers, they host Rutgers, then they play Ohio State that Thursday, then they go to Penn State that Saturday. So those 3 games right there could possibly be when they do get beat because they're going to be number one, it looks like, for the next 2 weeks. Okay. So I'm just looking at schedule, and that's what it's telling me. But when it comes down to the tournament, will they be a team that you can trust? Will they be a team that gets to the Final Four? When has Purdue got to the Final Four? That's the biggest question, though, right? Like, we don't have that because they've had a bunch of good teams in the last 30 years I've been watching college basketball. So pretty much, I would say this might be their best shot at being a real problem since Glenn Big Dog Robinson. And they do have a really good talent pool right now with this team as well. They got Edie, who's out here getting 22 a game, big man. And then they got Lawyer getting 13.1. But then they have some great contributions coming from the role players. And these guys are guys who can play. They're all grown men. And, when you got a guy getting a double-double, that's very helpful as well, too. And then when you got floor general and Smith that's really good at what he does, and he's able to keep things in place, that's another good trait for a team. But this team does have to prove itself in a big way, in my opinion. So there's a lot that goes into it, but we'll see how it shapes up and see how it shakes out. And this should be a really good team moving forward, in my opinion. Purdue, but they are in a tough conference, and they will possibly hang around the top 15 all year long. They might not be in the top 10 all year, but top 15 for sure. But I think that this team for right now, they need to get a little bit more love because they did strap up 2 top 10 teams back to back. So it is what it is at the end of the day. And with that, we're going to go ahead and change gears a little bit and move on to our next topic at hand. And that's going to be our games that we have today. And our games that we have today are going to be some really good ones. Up first is going to be Kansas and Indiana, and Kansas and Indiana is going to be a good one because you have 2 teams that are going into, they're about to go into some intense conference play. So this is a good measurement game. This is a good game for the committee as well too for the tournament. And these are 2 teams I know that probably will not have an issue making the tournament this year. Kansas is the defending national champion as well. So this game does have a lot that goes into it, but it is a home game for Kansas as well too. And we all know that Kansas and Indiana, they have their yearly game. So this is a tough game for each side. They are rivals. So, these are two traditions in college basketball as well. So it's just a lot that goes into this game that gets you excited. So I truly do feel like we do have ourselves probably the best even matchup of the day here, somewhat, because we know how Kansas can get. Kansas, if they get rolling, then you're done. You're cooked. And they're at Allen Fieldhouse today, too. This isn't a game that's on a neutral court. So, you got an Indiana team that's up against it, but Indiana does have that North Carolina win, and I know that that's kind of what they're using as a motivational point as well, too. You know what I mean? So they can look at this and go into this game with the idea that they have a big shot against this Kansas team, but I like Kansas a lot today. I saw some things with Kansas to where when they turn it on, they're tough to beat. You know what I mean? They're tough to deal with. They're tough to beat. And it's just it can get real ugly with that team very quickly. So that's where we're at right now with that. And I think that I like Kansas a lot to go ahead and do what they got to do in this spot to get themselves a very, very thorough win against a very tough Indiana team. But we haven't seen Indiana beat a non-conference team that's top 10 in a long time. So, we'll see how it goes because Indiana is just not the Indiana we truly remember that they are. It's been some lean years for this team, even though they've been making the tournament and all that good stuff. But they do have one of my favorite players in Bryce as well too. Their big man is a hell of a player, and if he gets off today, then it could be some trouble for Kansas. But I don't see that happening. I think that he gets off, but his teammates don't show up. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm seeing. And so pretty much we move forward and let's jump into a game that I know I didn't have listed, but I totally had to see that it was happening. But this is the biggest game of the day today. Houston at Virginia. This game is going to be on ESPN2 as well. So you have these two teams that are very mirror images of each other. Both play really good defense. You know what I mean? And then both are really, both have a lot of experience on their side. They're teams that don't have guys leave. That's the key part about them. Guys are not leaving these schools. So they have that working out for them in their favor. So that's something that's pretty huge right there. And you have a Houston team that is coming off their first loss of the season last Saturday against an Alabama team that has two number ones on their resume this year that they beat. But then you got Virginia, who got a very strong win over Baylor. When I saw that game, I was like, this is a good team. And they got a good win over Michigan in their Big Ten ACC Challenge game. And, pretty much they haven't been blowing teams out here the last 3 games, but they do enough on the defensive end to just outlast you. But I don't think that's going to be enough today against a Houston team that really will bring it to you. Houston lost last week because one of their best players fouled out with 10 minutes left to go in the game, and they got a little too comfortable. They got themselves a nice 15-point cushion. They got really, really, really comfortable. They jumped out to a 13-2 run to start the second half, and they thought that, pretty much we cut the lights out. We should be able to run away with this one, but that only led to them being outscored from that point by Alabama 42 to 21. So it was a 21-point switch that happened in that game, and pretty much that's why they lost by 6. And that was a great comeback from a really, really good team in Alabama. Very lengthy, but Houston at the end of the day is really a remarkable situation, and they've been able to get themselves some good wins. But you do look at some of their games and say, well, they barely beat a Kent State. You know what I mean? They beat Kent State 49-44 their first game as the number 1, and then they were able to win 3 as the number 1. But I think that they had a lot of games that were very close to each other. So playing that Alabama game was a little kind of right for Alabama, not right for Virginia. So pretty much, not Virginia, but for Houston. So today they go against a Virginia team that really hasn't been challenged yet, even though they got a good win even though they got good wins this year over Baylor and over Illinois as well too when they were in Vegas. Those are 2 ranked teams. But after that, the next best win that they have is Michigan, because I'm not counting Florida State. Florida State's not good this season. So pretty much this game to me has Houston written all over it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out, but we move forward from there. Let's go ahead and jump into our next spot. That's going to be we just talked about them, Alabama, and they are going against Gonzaga today. Gonzaga is very uncharacteristic right now here early in the year. They're number 15, but they do have 3 losses on the season as well too. They lost to Texas when they were the number 2 team in the nation this year, and then they lost to Purdue as well too. We already talked about, they lost by 18, and then they had a heartbreaker against Baylor, who was number 6 in the nation when they played. Last Friday, the Baylor wound up winning that game 64-63, only by a point. That was kind of heartbreaking for that team. But all in all, it was a great game. It went the way that you would expect it to go. The game was actually on an Army base, so the thing is that you have a very unique situation here. So Gonzaga, I think that they're starting to come back down to earth a little bit. I know that they had a good 2-year run of just being a very dominant team, but college basketball had to catch up. That's the whole thing. But they still have Drew Timme, who's a hell of a player. He's getting 20 points, 11 rebounds a game. Julian Strawther, the Vegas kid. He's a junior now, so he's stepping it up. He's getting 13.2 a game as well, but they need a little bit more, man. I just don't see this team being who they used to be. They got a lot of really good role players, but they're not over the top role players. But they're getting some good traction though this year. I think once they get the conference play, they'll be fine. But all in all, though, this should be a really, really good season. You know what I mean? Give me 1 second. All right. So we have this Alabama Crimson Tide and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Now, Alabama is number 4 in the nation, rightfully so. Even though they could be a little bit higher, they do have that one loss against the number 3 team in the nation now, who's Connecticut. But when you look at this, they've beaten in their last 6 games. They played against 4 teams in the top 25, and they are 3-1. Okay, and they beat 2 number 1s in the process of that. And then they also beat Michigan State, but Michigan State is not ranked anymore, but they were kind of in there for novelty as well. But when you look at it, though, they haven't really played anybody but those teams, and they played Memphis, and Memphis gave them all that they could on Tuesday night. So this game might soften them up a little bit for Gonzaga. And we do have to remember this game isn't in Tuscaloosa. The game is actually in Birmingham. I know that's probably even better for Alabama because that's in the capital, but we'll see how this one really does play out. I think that this one winds up being a really good game, but I think Gonzaga figures out a way to win this game with some pretty strong shooting today. That's where I have it at. And I think Drew Timme's going to have himself a really good game. But Alabama is tough. They're very long. They're very lengthy. And they do have the looks of being a team that could go a little bit further than their expectations are giving them. I think that they really truly are a top 5 team, but I think that they possibly can do exactly what Auburn did last season. You know what I mean? So pretty much we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out, but we move on from there. And let's go ahead and jump into our next game, which is going to be the first game from the Garden, and that's going to be between North Carolina and Ohio State. North Carolina, we already talked about them to start the show off. So Ohio State comes in here. As I said, I don't like the way that Ohio State was looking to start the year, but they're playing much better basketball at this point. They've worked themselves into the number 23 ranking as well, too. They did lose to Duke, and they lost to San Diego State as well, too. But after that, though, they've had themselves some good, strong wins, but they've only beat one ranked team. That was Texas Tech, who's not ranked anymore. They also had a big blowout against their rivals to the south, Cincinnati, but all this was done when they played in Hawaii as well, too. And so their wins have been significant, and then they did pull out a miracle game against Rutgers in their last game. So, they did play, and they haven't played in a week, so they are fresh coming into this game. And I think that is something that's very good for Ohio State coming into a game like this with North Carolina. Now, you do see a pretty pretty good foursome here in Key, Sensabaugh, Sewing, and McNeil. So this group should be able to hold it down today. And Zed Key is the main character on here. Zed Key just had 22 against Rutgers as well. So they're going to have to try to stop him, the kid from Bayshore, New York, from Queens. So they're going to try to have to stop the big man here today, and he's shooting excellent right now as well too. He's at 70.4 field goal percentage as well this year. So that should work out as long as he doesn't stay, as long as he's not in foul trouble today. It should be a very, very good game for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And they have him out there shooting threes as well too. He didn't do that the first few seasons he was there, but he's been shooting threes. He's been working on that shot, and he's a monster on the offensive boards as well too. So Zed Key is my key player for this game today for Ohio State. My key player on the other side is going to be Babcock today. So this is going to be a really good game. This could possibly be like the best game on paper where you can really go ahead and split it up, and you got to see exactly. You got to play it smart, but this game is, set up in the right way, in my opinion. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. We move forward from there. Now, let's go ahead and jump into our next game, which is going to, and I know I'm using the whole billboard, but this is the CBS Sports Classic. That's what it is. We got UCLA and Kentucky coming up after that game, and that's the feature game because you know that they are the blue bloods, you know what I mean, and North Carolina is a blue blood as well too. But UCLA and Kentucky have the most national championships ever, so that will always be talked about, and this has became a de facto game the last few years. Kentucky and UCLA. From the 41-7 game from the 41-7 game when they had Karl Towns and crew and all that stuff, and then from when you had the Bruins go in there and drop 50 points in the first half, and then Kentucky has this monster comeback or whatever, and sparks off a big war between Lonzo Ball and De'Aaron Fox. It's fun stuff with UCLA and Kentucky. But today's game, you got UCLA team that's number 16, Kentucky's number 13. Kentucky to me hasn't really proven much to me this year. They're 7-2 on the season. They got smoked by Gonzaga. They got beat by Michigan State as well too. They have no good wins on their resume this year. Everybody that they played are lower tier teams. Only good win that they have here is against Michigan, and that was they had to pull some teeth to win that game because they played them in London of all places, and they wound up only beating them by 4. Michigan's really good. It's still a good team. They were a ranked team this year, but you would expect Kentucky to kind of wipe the floor with them. And then they had a good win over Yale last Saturday. So they've been off for a week as well, too. So UCLA is the best team that they've played against since Gonzaga. So I think that the way that they have came to the plate against these teams, they're not playing good basketball. Let's just keep it real. You know what I mean? But they're playing good basketball against the bad team. So that's something that I know that they're gonna hammer in on. But this isn't one of Calipari's better teams, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Calipari has a lot of guys that just they're not getting mentioned that much on TV, but he does have Obi Toppin's brother as well, too, Jacob Toppin. And I think that they just really have lost that little glow when it comes to bringing all the freshmen and all that stuff. They actually have to have a team that has seniors. And, if you have to stick around for all your years over at over at Kentucky, you might not be that good. Calipari has kind of made that assessment a little bit with Kentucky. So, pretty much this is a very telling game because I think either team goes right into the top 10, whoever the winner is today for this game. UCLA is playing great team basketball, in my opinion, right now. I've been able to get more of a look at them, but they have, once again, they're a team that doesn't have any good wins on their resume for Maryland, who was number 20 in the nation. That was Wednesday night. Now, they did have some close games with Illinois and Baylor in Vegas, but at that point they were the number 5 team in the nation at that point. Number 8 team in the nation, I'm sorry. And they could have went straight to number 1 if they would have been able to win both of those games. Now, as soon as they came out of that game, they wound up winning 6 in a row. And all these games had been blowouts. Even Oregon was a blowout game. So pretty much that's where they're at right now. UCLA is confident. They have a lot of scores, but UCLA plays really intense defense. And they have 5 guys who are averaging double digits. And then their big man hasn't even really scratched the surface yet, but he dropped 14 in the last game, Bona, and Bona is at 7.8. He'll be a double-digit scorer very soon as well, too. So this is a lot of fun to look at. UCLA has a title team in place. You thought that they were really good the last 2 years, with Johnny Juzang, but this team is really good with the group that they have here because these guys have been here. They went to the majority of this roster went to the Final Four with this group as well, too. So, you're missing some of the, you're missing Jules and Johnny and, certain guys that were very key, but these guys were big to it as well, too. Jalen Clark, David Singleton, Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez, those guys are big time. And then you add in the freshman Amari Bailey. They are playing really good basketball, and this is a great showcase game for the UCLA Bruins today. So we'll see how this one shapes up, see how it shakes out, and we go from there. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our final game. That's going to be later on tonight, and that's going to be the Arizona and Tennessee. And pretty much this one is a very, very fun game. This is another game that's going to be on a neutral court as well. And they're playing later on tonight. They're actually playing at the McKell Center. I'm sorry, this game is going to be at Arizona. I thought it was going to be a neutral court game, but Arizona is all the advantages are going to Arizona, but Tennessee is tough, man. Tennessee absolutely wrecked Kansas over in the Battle of Atlantis, and they really wrecked shop in that tournament as well, too. They beat up on Butler. They got a good win over USC. They got a great win over Kansas, though. That win over Kansas was Battle of Atlantis. I'm sorry, I said Battle. I was acting like Butler was not a part of the Battle of Atlantis, but USC got a great one. And, they did have to shake off a bad loss to start the year against Colorado. Colorado did come in there and absolutely take them to the woodshed in that second half. But from that point on, they've won their last 8 in a row. And they've had good wins against USC, Kansas, and they also got a win over Maryland as well, too. They beat Maryland by 3. So they're coming back around after they played last Sunday. They're coming back around trying to get themselves a win over here at Arizona tonight. And Arizona is coming in here number 6 in the nation. Let me flip it. Arizona is number 9 and Tennessee is number 6. Sorry about that. So pretty much don't take that seriously right there. So you have, and the game is at Arizona as well too. So let's not get it twisted. That's exactly where it's at. And so pretty much you have that in place, and you have just you got a very good game that's going to happen tonight, in my opinion. And it's probably another one of the best games of the day because you got 2 top 10 teams going at it, just like you do with Houston and Virginia. So this is going to be a good one, in my opinion. And I think a lot of us will be very entertained, especially with this one ending tonight, too. It's a great sports day as well. So, 7:30, and it's going to be an ESPN game. So it should be really good. I like Arizona here, but I think Tennessee actually does go ahead and answer the bell, and that they're actually my dog bet of the day in this situation with these top 25 teams. And I think they go ahead and find themselves a way to win. Arizona playing good basketball, but their one loss on the season was to Utah. So, can you trust them? That's the biggest question. But they did get a monster win over Indiana as well too a few weeks back. They did beat them by 14 in Vegas. So, tonight they try to go ahead and get this done. They did get a big tournament win to start the year by winning the Maui tournament. So, this team is dangerous. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But we move forward from there, and let's get into these let's get into the tickets, man. Let's get into the tickets. I know that's what you guys been waiting on. So let's go ahead and get into them. All right, first ticket that we got is the Rise and Shine Pick 6. Rise and Shine Pick 6 is 57-1. We got Eastern Illinois with the 2.5, and then we got Missouri with the minus 105 money line today. And then we got Liberty in their game at -5, and then we have Wake Forest with the +9, and then we have St. Francis, Pennsylvania with the 22.5, and then we have Providence in their conference game today against Seton Hall with the +125. So that's how we have that game set up. Then we have the Dirty Dozen Jackpot, and that's going to start games. First tip is at 11 o'clock. We have a ticket that's 3,192 to 1. So that ticket right there is pretty much $1 gets you 31.92, and I'm talking about $3,192. And $10 gets you 31 racks, and 20 gets you 62. So hey, I don't know, you know what I mean? So pretty much you have this. It's a good little bet. So pretty much you have the actually, I think it's a 390. You guys know it's a lot of money. It's that simple. All right, so you have DePaul 8.5, FIU +15. Also, I have Eastern Carolina +100, Cincy with the -13, Radford +110, Georgia Southern -4, Syracuse -9, UMass +155, Northern Arizona +9.5, Sam Houston. I love me some Sam Houston this year. Do not sleep on Sam Houston. They already are considered one of my top 5 Cinderellas if they can make the tournament this year. And Sam Houston with the -145. Let's get it. And then we have Arkansas with the -10 today. And then we finish up with Hampton playing in their rivalry game today against Norfolk State with the +11. So we move from there. Let's go ahead and get into the Dog Day Pick 4, which is a 64-1 ticket. So you put $10 on this one is $640. If you put 20 on it, it is going to be $1280. So you got yourself some really good numbers there. So pretty much we got Little Rock with the +280. We got George Mason with the +180. Then we got Pepperdine with the +170. And then we got BYU with the +115 today. And that's going to be our Dog Day Pick 4. So you guys make sure to keep your eyes on the prize with that one, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how it shakes out. Now, let's go ahead and jump into our primetime pick 6, which is 63-1. These are all the games that I just got done talking about. And we have Kansas to start us off with the 5.5. Then we have the Zags with the +100. And then we have Houston with the -145. And then we have UNC with the -145 today as well. And then we got UCLA with the -130. And then we have Tennessee with the +140. I do like UNC in that game against Ohio State. I just think that, Ohio State just doesn't show up for these games at these neutral court situations, but I think that the line should be a little bit lower than what it really is. I think that UNC's a better 125 today, you know what I mean? But 145, we'll take it. And then we finish up with the Bailout Pick 4. The Bailout Pick 4 are all games that start at 7 p.m. tonight. And pretty much we got Bakersfield money line +175. We're going to go ahead and rock with the home dog tonight against Abilene Christian. And then we got Washington with the -15 tonight. They're going against Idaho State. That should be a good tune-up game for that team going into conference play. Then we got Santa Barbara. That's kind of, I know I'm doing a bit much with it, but we're going to take Santa Barbara with the -180. And then we got the +6 with Vandy tonight. So that should be a lot of fun. That should be a lot to handle tonight. And I like where we're going with this one. So pretty much with that, that's going to be a wrap on Hoops 101. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And you guys are the absolute best. And with that, we're going to go ahead and we will move on down the road. You know, so it is what it is, and you know, it's still early, and you know, I didn't, so don't mind me. I know I'm not looking pretty, so it's all good. But we'll be back tomorrow on IG doing the talking tickets for the NFL and all that good stuff about 9 a.m. So you guys be ready for that. And then we got hella tickets coming today. That's all I can say. So you guys be good. And let's go ahead and win the day today. And it is what it is. As I always say, bet with your head, not with your heart. This is Hoops 101. And I'm your host, the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Kappa. And I am gone.